thought on this is that I think that trans women have a more beautiful understanding what womanhood is.
I agree.
Your womanhood is not your status in society, and your womanhood is not your ability to be sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought about when I saw this clip was that I've had to be realistic about the fact that even if I wanted to pretend as if these things were irrelevant to me, I cannot go out into the world and not expect for sexual violence to be something that is a risk for me. That is such a strong part of my experience. All right, so I have been getting a lot of requests to talk about my opinion about some controversy involving Drew Afualo. I am familiar with Drew Afualo. We do follow each other. I have appreciated her as a content creator, but I am in no parasocial relationship with nobody. The closest I ever came was Christine of Threadbanger, and that was when I was quite young. I don't adore people to the point where I can't criticize them, and apparently this is a conversation people are criticizing her for that relates to transgender women, and I felt compelled to look into it. So let's look at what people are talking about. I'm a little nervous looking into this because the bit that I've seen, I'm not really sure if I vibe with the reactions that I'm seeing from people, but I haven't actually seen the original post. So let's at least see the clip that people are reacting to. Okay, so I believe that this was something that was said on the podcast. I think this might be the full clip. Let's give it a view.
Thought on this is that I think that trans women have a more beautiful understanding what womanhood is.
I agree.
I think that unfortunately the programming for cis women is kind of sad sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
I'm like, actually, no, your womanhood is not your role. Your womanhood is not your status in society, and your womanhood is not your ability to be sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And this trans debate that's like centering all on, well, like if a quote unquote man in a dress is in a bathroom, he will rape me. I'm like, okay, well then it sounds like the problem that we have is that men are going to rape and women are fearing rape their whole lives.
Right.
And when you talk to trans women about their woman, they talk about it, like almost gets me choked up. They talk about it in such this like beautiful, expansive way.
Yeah.
Of like, it's this feeling I always had. You know, it's this truth I've always known. It's the most beautiful parts of me. It's my softest self. And I don't feel that from cis women right now because I think the propaganda is so strong.
I agree.
And I love women. Oh my God, I'm so obsessed with women. I'm obsessed with
Me too.
all women. I really am obsessed
Me
with all
too.
women.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you guys what is coming off of my head right in this moment. The first thing I thought about when I saw this clip was that I think I have a hard time expressing my relationship with womanhood in the way that she discussed trans women speaking about their experience. Like for me, I think a big part of my issue with understanding this immediately is I am 35 years old. Next month, I will be 36 on the 14th of September. And that is the life expectancy for trans women. And I transitioned when I was a teenager. I came out as trans when I was 14, 15 years old, started my medical transition when I was 19 years old. I've spent most of my life as a trans woman. And from a very young age, I had uncomfortable experiences. When she was talking about sexual assault and sexual violence, one of the things I thought about was, man, I wish I could say that my conception of existing in our culture as a woman was free of that. Because for me, I developed breasts when I was a teenager, and men had a reaction to me I didn't understand. I think a big part of my experience is that I'm used to being essentialized. I'm used to people reading me as female, and I've been used to people reading me as female for most of my life. When I came out as trans and medically transitioned, that only became more of a thing. But even before that, I had situations where I had to register that someone was seeing me as female. And for me, that had upsides in that it was helpful for me in being accepted as a trans woman. But for me, a lot of my early thoughts and recognizing the difference between myself and little boys was that I was being viewed differently and treated differently because of the shape of my body, right? And so sometimes I know that when I listen to women speak in that term, the term that she's talking about in this video about their womanhood resonates with me because that is such a strong part of my experience. Now, of course, there are things I don't know, right? I do not bleed, right? I do not have the ability to have children. And for a lot of women, those are seismic, strong aspects of their womanhood. And of course, in a culture that has historically defined women in that way, obviously that is going to be what most women cite as what makes them a woman. I think that I understand what she's saying in this video. It's not particularly confusing to me. She's essentially saying that a lot of trans women, and this is, I think, because of a lot of trans women's lack of experience with having a more positive relationship with femininity, right? Maybe not necessarily womanhood, but especially femininity in a certain way, right? Like for me, I've never really registered with the conception of transness where it's all about my gender expression. Like I didn't know that I was a trans woman because I liked femininity. Like, of course I was feminine. Like, yeah, that's true to some degree. But I didn't think that that was the thing that defined me. I started my trans life as a genderqueer person, somebody who definitely did not believe in the gender binary and did not want to feed into gendered conceptions of things. But I did have to accept after I went away to college that I was a trans woman. And what made me recognize that was that all of the things that I accepted of myself were things that I registered as a woman, right? I had to be real with myself and realize that my gender was not non-binary or genderqueer. It was just on that side of things. I'm a person who medically transitioned young, and I have an experience where most of my life I've just been seen as female. Being out as a content creator, sometimes that's not always the case because I am openly trans. It is on my Wikipedia page. And there are people who, when they know who I am, treat me differently. But in a lot of ways, I'm not. And so because that is such a strong part of my experience, I think I feel a certain way where I am so used to people trying to slot me into a certain role in society. And it does make me a little resentful. I remember feeling this really intensely when I lived with my ex and I was living in Orange County, which was very conservative. I lived in a community where it was mostly residential and politically conservative. And if you were a woman by yourself, like walking around unaccompanied by friends, people were like, why are you by yourself? I would regularly have people ask me, your boyfriend, where's a man? Isn't a man supposed to be with you? Right. Now, mind you, this was like, God, like mid 2010s, early to mid 2010s. Maybe things are different now, but for me back then, that was a thing. Still to this day, that's a huge thing. I'm a stubborn person who I don't want to bend to what I know is true of society. I don't want to accept that I can't go out by myself. And I don't like the idea that I need a man to be with me. When I moved to LA, one of the biggest things was this idea that I wanted to get out from under a man. So much of my 20s was spent with this particular man, feeding into what he wanted, playing a role for what he wanted, sacrificing what I wanted for what he wanted. And that was the expectation that was placed upon me because I'm a woman. Even before I had that particular relationship, I found myself constantly in situations like that, where there were expectations of me because I'm a woman and because that's the way that society views me. It is still overwhelming to me to some degree because it does affect every moment of my life. I cannot go out into the world, especially the way that I do by myself as a woman who doesn't drive, and not expect for sexual violence to be something that is a risk for me. I get that relating it to sexual violence is reductive and it's sad and yada yada, but it is a really strong part of my life. It is a really strong part of my experience. I can understand how an experience that isn't quite as informed by that specifically would maybe sound a bit more positive, right? For me, the thought I had watching this is, oh, now trans women have to endear a lot of people essentially saying that trans women are not women, that anything that they go through is not a woman's experience. For me personally, what I have had to be realistic about, and this is something that I've really tried to get across, I've had to be realistic about the fact that even if I wanted to pretend as if these things were irrelevant to me, as if I didn't have to worry about the same things that cis women have to worry about, right? Many of the same things that cis women have to worry about, I would still experience misogyny. You know, I would still experience misogyny. A lot of the men who assaulted me did not even know that I was a trans woman, right? And so it's this situation where I can't disconnect it. And, you know, when I was getting out of my abusive relationship, this is going to sound really fucking stereotypical. I was getting out of an abusive relationship at the end of college. And one of the things I did was shave my head. At the time, I'd started to wear my hair out. And, you know, back then, girl, it's funny, my hair was actually this color. And I used to bleach it this color. Black girls are going to know exactly the box I'm talking about. I used to get the Beyonce box. And I would like relax my hair and I would color my hair. Girl, you couldn't tell me shit. Couldn't tell me shit. I was so proud of my beauty. And I didn't want men to look at me. I wanted to seem more masculine. And so I shaved my fucking head so men would leave me alone. And of course, shaving my head didn't work. You know, like apparently there's a whole group of men who like bald girls, right? Like, and I've just always felt like there was almost this stink on me. Like for me, I always feel almost like there's like a thing stuck on me. Like there's like a scent that people have for me where I literally can't go out without people doing something weird and sexual to me. And it is a very comfortable thing. It's one of the reasons I don't go out as much as I could. I used to be a really big shut-in because my parents raised me that way, but I make a point of going out more and more. People ask me why my skin looks the way it does. It's because I've been not in the sunlight for many years. I wish I could say that my relationship with womanhood was free of the fear of coercion. I wish I could say that it was sweet, cute puppies and pink and Barbie dolls. Those things are great. I like those things too sometimes. I'm more of a Monster High girl. But at the end of the day, for me, it's really hard to disconnect it from that. Because just the way that I've existed in this world, I've been essentialized in a way that feels harmful to me. Some people are like, well, you don't like it. Why don't you just detransition? But that's because I can't survive that way. And the sexual violence, this is what I had to accept as I was coming into feminism. The sexual violence I experienced is a reflection of the misogynistic culture that we live in. Not to say that sexual violence is something that only happens to women. I was just certainly targeted because that's how I was read, right? Keeping in mind, I was developing breasts as a teenager. So this was something that I've dealt with for a while, being objectified in our culture. So it is unfortunately like a really strong reaction that I have. I know that some people don't love when I talk about stuff like this, but this is where my brain went. Something I also thought about, especially because I am an older trans woman who's been out for a very long time, is that I think a lot of people, when they think about trans people, they always think about them being recently out. A trans woman who's recently out, who's just in the phase of their life where they're finally able to be themselves, is going to have a rose-colored lens feeling about being a woman. But when you are living it and when you're in it and when society is seeing you that way and when they're treating you a certain way because of that perception of you, oh my God. Yes, in some ways you could say that my life is very privileged because people don't often know that I'm trans, right? That does protect me from transphobia for the most part. But I'm still a Black woman. I'm still a Black woman. And objectification is something I constantly deal with living in the city. One of the things I don't like about living in the city is the amount of street harassment I get and the fact that men whistle at me and all this other shit. When that first started happening to me when I was younger, there was maybe a half second where I thought it was maybe cute. But very quickly, I started to realize, oh, I literally can't exist in this world without people wanting to consume me, because I exist in a culture where women are objectified. And therefore, because of the package that I'm in, I'm going to be objectified. I've had to be realistic about it, no matter how transphobic people are, no matter how many factions of feminism want to exclude me. I know that feminism and this understanding of these things is incredibly important. So I am not going to seek out the full clip. That is going to be the end of what I have to say about this. I try to keep up with the flavors of the week, but honestly, you guys, like, I'm trying to move on to other things. I want to make this clear too, because, certain conversations right now, I am going to switch gears. I'm trying to get to some other projects, and I'm trying to be a bit better about doing stuff like this, where I'm able to respond quickly and simply to topics that people want me to respond to. We will be seeing a change and a shift on this channel quite soon, and I'm excited for you guys to see it. So on that note, I would love to know what you guys have to say about this clip in the comment box below. Please give me your thoughts and your perspectives. I do love to read them. Also, right now, we're doing a sale in my store, katblaque.store, where you can get $5 off of all bikinis and swim shorts all summer long. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. And as per usual, I want you to always remember and to never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye.